Hey guys, thank you for joining me for another online yoga class. Today we're going to be working with our elemental series of yoga. Today we're going to be working with the element of water. So we're going to be bringing plenty of fluidity through our practice. We're going to be bringing plenty of movements through our practice, and we're going to be exploring ranges of motion of our joints that maybe we don't often tune into. So we're going to take the approach of whatever feels good today. We're going to work with opening through the hips, the shoulders, and we're going to find these places, these sweet spots where we find that we maybe need to stretch, and we're going to find that nice place where we wanted to move without causing any pain. So literally flowing through the class today. I warn you maybe not to bring in as much dynamic movement as you think maybe you would want to at the start of class, because if you're not careful, bringing in this dynamic movement can bring heat, fire, or even air into the postures, some lightness, which we don't really want. We want to be heavy, we want to be grounding, but we still want that fluidity, that movement. So think of yourself as a really big, beautiful stream flowing through the postures. Okay, you're heavy, you're grounding into the earth, but you're moving with it. Okay, so going with the flow. Make sure you move in your comfortable ranges of motion, especially as we're going to be bringing lots of dynamic movements. Don't move to your full expression of the postures between the breaths, and make sure that you're not moving into any places that feel painful. So if you're moving beyond a normal range of motion and it feels really tight, try to not go into that place too deeply. Just explore it for where you are today. Just really quickly as well, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting me make these videos. The donations people have been giving has been so helpful to support me to continue making these videos, these series for you, which I hope you're enjoying. If anybody did want to donate, I will leave the link down below for the PayPal or the Patreon. And if you don't have the money, or you don't want to donate, that's fine as well. But I would appreciate if you enjoyed the videos, if you wanted to leave a like on the videos or subscribe to my channel, that will help as well. If you wanted to follow me on social media, Instagram or Facebook, I'll leave the links down below for that as well. Thank you so much. Namaste. Okay, so we're going to start with a spinal warm-up. We're going to work especially today with the fluidity of the postures. So just use this opportunity as a way of finding out how we're feeling in the mobility of each joint. So not necessarily if you're noticing any pains or tightness, not necessarily looking for that, although we will be looking to see that as well. But also just to notice the range of movements with each of our joints. So not necessarily trying to force ourselves beyond these ranges of motion, but just becoming aware of, especially in like the ball and socket joints of the hips and the shoulders, just to explore the different ways in which we can move them. So use this warm up as an opportunity to kind of explore a little bit deeper into the joints as well. So we'll just start in our comfortable seated position. We're just going to take a chance to connect to our Ujjayi pranayama. Our breath is going to be a really useful tool in this practice to help us move with the fluidity of the postures. So bringing the dynamic movement in without bringing in too much heat is going to require a slow, steady breath. You may find that as you begin to move more, your breath becomes more shallow. This may be an indication that you've brought in a little bit too much heat and a little bit too much dynamic energy into the postures. So you're just going to want to slow down the breathing, probably slow down the movements that you're doing as well. And just use this as a guide, your breath as a guide throughout the practice to notice how quickly you're moving and how easy it is to maintain the slow and steady inhales and exhales. So just to connect, we're going to come into a seated position, whatever that looks like for you as always, and we're going to connect to Jala Mudra, which is the mudra for water. So we're going to bring the thumb to the root of the ring finger. We're going to do that on both hands. For some people, even for me, this feels a little bit odd sometimes, it feels like the rest of the fingers are beginning to close in. So we're working on extending them out towards straight, but if it doesn't feel comfortable, feel free to let them curl up slightly, that's okay too, or even place them palms down, that can work as well, or just bring the hands to the lap or onto the knees, that's fine too. But really begin to notice, as perhaps you begin to close your eyes here, notice the fluidity in your body, notice the energy traveling throughout you. We as humans are built primarily from water, so begin to tune into how that feels within your body. Notice the subtle movements that your body creates with each inhale and with each exhale. Follow the gentle rhythms. And it can be a useful visualization tool in this practice to see yourself as kind of like a river or a flowing stream, and moving between the postures, not staying still for too long, but also not building heat. We're not trying to put too much air or too much fire into our practice. We're trying to stay heavy, stay grounded, and just explore these gentle, soft ranges of motion as we flow through the postures. And as well as the body, we're trying to find a steady flow of consciousness through the mind. So we should have a gentle stream of consciousness flowing from one posture to another without too much interruptions between. Try to see your postures as a flow of consciousness as we focus on either our drishtis or our breath or the posture itself without too much in the way. If you notice other thoughts beginning to crop up, try to let them go. Try to flow over them. Maintaining your steady stream of consciousness. Take one more deep breath in. Exhale, let it go. Bring the palms together at the heart center. Softly open the eyes, Namaste. Okay. So with our spinal warm-up, we're going to bring the right hand to the outside of the right hip to start with as we inhale. Try to move it slowly this time. Bring the left hand up towards the ceiling. Discovering that range of motion, not only in the left shoulder, but the right shoulder. Maybe even bringing the left hand down towards the floor. Sweep it around. Lift it back up. And then bring the right hand up as well. Softly bringing the left hand to the outside. Sweeping the right hand down as we exhale. Steady, slow breathing, inhale, reach it up. Gently bringing the left hand up to meet the right. Exhale, moving into our twist, right hand to the outside of the right hip, left hand towards the right knee, maintaining that steady stream of motion. Inhale to extend. Exhale to twist, looking out over the right shoulder. And try to find a constant stream of movement. So you may not be physically moving into this posture any deeper, so don't force any postures. I'm not saying you have to go very deep into them, but try to maintain that steady, slow movement. So that may mean an indication of, as we inhale, we draw up through the crown of the head, feel that energy traveling along the length of the spine. As we exhale, we very gently open, maybe draw that right shoulder away from the ear, softly open, spinning the chest slightly, allowing the hips to open a little bit deeper. There's so many movements you can take in these postures to bring fluidity without forcing. Inhale, very gently come to center, slow, slow, slow. Exhale, left hand to the outside of the left hip, right hand towards the left knee, still very gently moving. As we move into our inhales, we create that space. As we exhale, softly move. Inhale, come through center slowly. Imagine you're moving through water. Exhale, release the hands down. Coming into our tabletop position, we're going to come into our cat-cow movement. Take a little bit of extra time here to find what feels good. So wrists underneath your shoulders, knees underneath your hips, feet flat out behind you as we inhale. Maybe drop the chest a little bit lower, maybe even bring the elbows out to the side so we've got that little bit of extra space as we lift the chest, lift the crown of the head up, let the belly really melt down towards the floor, maybe even bring some gentle movements into the hips. Exhale, start the movement of the tailbone around the spine. Try to avoid ever being still in this sequence. Obviously, if you need to take a break, but try to allow these gentle fluid movements to continue with you throughout your whole practice, finding what feels nice. So we're less rigid in this practice. We're not going to try and find necessarily precise alignments, but instead moving through the postures with dynamic intent allowing the joints to open, searching for those areas of tightness and then gently paying attention to them, maybe moving a little bit more between, especially the joints that feel tight. Maybe even bring some lateral flexion and extension into the spine, side to side, kind of a snaking motion. Last exhale, rounding the spine. And then inhale, come back to center. We're going to come into our downward facing dog, so bring the palms forward slightly, fingers spread nice and wide, wrist creases in line with the front edge of the mat. Tuck the toes under, lift the sit bones up and back towards the ceiling. So even here, a nice way of bringing fluid motion into the downward dog is to just bring yourself forward to plank slightly, looking forward, check that the shoulders are over the wrists, and then very gently press back to downward facing dog. And this will give you a nice long stretch along the back of the legs. And another way of bringing that fluid movement into downward facing dog is to pedal the feet one at a time, slowly as you can. Imagine you're walking through water. Notice the breath. Can you still maintain strong inhales and exhales? You shouldn't feel restricted. The moment your breath becomes short and shallow, it may be an indication that you've added too much fire, too much air into your practice. Inhale. Look to the front of the mat, keeping the knees bent. Slowly as you can, gently walk the feet forward, coming into a ragdoll. So feet hips distance apart, maybe even slightly wider. And you really use this opportunity. So you can take opposite hand to opposite elbow, but I personally enjoy the sensation of bringing the arms out long. Maybe bend one leg, straighten the other as we roll off to one side. Exploring the range of motion in the hips, as well as loosening the tightness along the spine. Opening up through the shoulders and the back of the neck, which can feel really lovely. And then coming back to center, heel toe the feet to hips distance apart, bending the knees. Begin to very gently, very slowly roll up the spine, stacking one vertebrae at a time over your hips. Heavy, heavy, heavy. Until your chin comes parallel with the floor, standing Namaste. Big toes touching or feet hips distance apart, staying nice and strong. Maybe again use this little bit of momentum to find your standing posture, find what feels good. Move into extreme ranges of extension, lifting the chest. And then try and play with the opposite, round the back, flexion a little bit, bending the knees. Inhale. And then as we exhale, settle into our standing postures. We're going to take 3 rounds of Surya Namaskara A, Sun Salutation A, just to make sure, as always, we've brought that movement in before we go into any of the deeper postures. There shouldn't be any fear of not bringing movement in today, but just in case, I like to include them anyway. As we inhale, extend up, reach up through the palms of the hands, maybe even look up, low ribs drawn in, tailbone down. As we exhale, we bend the knees, hinge forward from the hips, bring the hands down towards the floor. Inhale, lengthen the spine, lift the chest, look forward. Exhale, bend the knees as much as you need to plant the hands. Stepping back to plank, lower all the way down onto the belly. Inhale, baby cobra, elbows into ribs, lift the chest, look forward. Exhale, forehead releases down, one fluid motion, come back to tabletop, tuck the toes under, downward facing dog, maintaining here for a couple of breaths again, pedaling out the legs, maybe shifting the hips side to side, really tuning into how you're feeling in your body. And try to avoid avoiding places of tightness and restriction. So if you notice you're a little bit tight in the shoulder, work with that. Find the mobility in that shoulder. Same with the hips, same with the ankles. If you're feeling a little bit tight, you can just gently work with them. No pain. We don't want to hurt ourselves, but we're just working with softly opening up and experience learning a little bit more about where we're feeling the restriction, because our joints have a lot of movements they can do. A lot of them do have multiple directions of movement. So just learn with what it is that feels comfortable and what it is that feels tight. Inhale, look forward in as many steps as you need. Shift forward, coming into that halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, ground down to come up all the way up. Exhale, Samastitihi. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Maybe your hands can reach the floor, shifting the weight forward into the hands a little bit. Inhale. Exhale. Can offer up jumping back, but I personally, for this flow, I'm enjoying gently pressing back and avoiding the sharp movements of jumping. Inhale, baby cobra, maybe even into either high cobra or upward facing dog. Exhale, try to let that fluid movement work your way through your spine. Roll over the toes, downward facing dog. Steady breaths in and out, pedaling the feet. Notice how you're feeling. Inhale, look forward in as many steps as you need, or again, shift forward to plank. Halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, Samastiti. Try to make it one stream of movement. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Maybe try including movements you don't normally do. Use this as an opportunity to be creative. See how you're feeling. Exhale. Downward facing dog. Steady breathing. Inhale. Maybe rolling the spine, shifting forward. Exhale. Last big inhale. Really make the most of it. Extend up. Reach, reach, reach. Exhale. Samastiti. Back to the front of the mat. And we're going to open up through a warrior two variation. So bring the right foot out wide. Bring the right toes to face the right edge of the mat, the short edge of the mat. And begin to bend that right knee so it stacks over the right ankle. Try shifting so the hips sit low. Okay, arms out to shoulder height, looking towards the middle finger of the right hand. Maybe allow the hips to sink a little bit lower without building too much heat. Okay, so we're not trying to bring in too much dynamic movement where you're feeling exhausted. Fluid movement as we inhale, we extend up. Constant movement. If you find yourself being still, bring in some new movements. Try something else. Exhale. Inhale. Follow your own breath patterns. Don't follow mine. Move with different rotations of the shoulders. Notice how it feels. Move them into an internal rotation. See if that feels nice. This is kind of a fun practice because it means you get to do whatever feels good to you. Maybe allowing those hips to melt a little bit closer to the floor. Inhale. And as we inhale, we come back through center, reach up, switch the feet so the left toes face out. Exhale. Again, establishing your foundations a little bit here, noticing how you're feeling in the feet, how are you feeling in the hips as we gently sink into that right hip, strengthening the quadricep without bringing too much heat, too much energy. Notice how you're feeling in that right hip. Arms out to shoulder height, looking out to the middle finger. Dynamic movements as we inhale. trying to keep those joints safe. So making sure that the right knee isn't caving in. It's staying stacked over the ankle. One more big breath in, come all the way back up. Exhale, release the hands down, bring the toes in slightly, Prasarita Padottanasana. Exhale, draw the shoulders away from the ears as we inhale, lengthen, draw the crown of the head away. Exhale to fold forward, bring the hands towards the floor or blocks if you have them. As we inhale, we create that space. As we exhale, we fold forward. Maybe shift the weight more into the hands, feeling lightness in the feet as we play with our balance here, rolling forward to the front of the feet, rolling backwards to the heels. Notice how you're feeling in the hips. Maybe you can even reach the crown of the head down towards the floor. This adds another element into the posture. Maybe beginning to bring some side bends into it, walking the hands over to the right. Maybe taking a hold of the foot or the ankle, folding in. Constantly moving, maybe back over to the left. No judgments, no expectations on how you should look. Just moving with what feels nice. Maybe bring the forearms down to the floor. Experiencing all these lovely different stretches you can in the legs. Last big exhale. Inhale, come up to a halfway lift, lengthen the spine. Look forward, nice and long. Exhale again. Inhale, strong foundations through the feet and the legs now, hands to the waist. Come all the way back up to standing. We're going to move into a variation on Warrior One or High Lunge Anjaneyasana. So step forward to Samastiti. Just take a moment here to release the legs. They've been in a wide position for a while now. So just let them go. We're going to move into a Warrior One with the option to move into kind of a pyramid variation. So we're going to step the feet out wide again. You're going to bring your left toes facing to the short edge of the mat. Your right toes are going to stay lifted. So we're in a high lunge kind of position here. Sorry, your right heel is lifted, not the toes. So the right heel is lifted. You can have your feet hips distance apart, and then you're going to stack your left knee over your left ankle. You can bring your arms up overhead here if that feels nice. Feel the weight sinking down. Maybe you can even bend in that back knee to allow yourself to sink a little bit deeper into the hips. Without building up too much energy as we exhale, we're going to straighten that front leg, bring the hands down towards the floor if you have blocks really useful, or the shins. Inhale into a Warrior One kind of variation, High Lunge Anjaneyasana. Exhale. And follow your own movements, okay? Working with opening the hips, opening the hamstrings. Maybe even look up, bringing the spine into an extension, sweep the arms down in a circle. Play with how this feels in the shoulders. And if you find it's building too much heat in that front leg, it can be nice as well to drop that back knee down and just gently begin to shift the weight forward from here. Slightly less range of motion, I suppose, but still really lovely. You can bring your arms up overhead, bring them down. Because as I said, you don't want to be building too much fire, too much heat in the body. So if you find that that pose is building a lot of heat, I certainly find it does, then just take a rest, drop to the knees. Last big inhale, coming up into that high lunge. And as we exhale, we'll open up to the side. Next side. Okay, so turning the right toes out, left toes in, so that the heel is lifted off the floor. As we exhale, we sink low into that right hip. Okay, feeling a nice stretch along the left hip flexors. Hopefully inhale, extend up, maybe even move the spine into an extension, looking up. And then as we exhale, bring the hands down towards the floor, beginning to lengthen through that right leg. Inhale up. Exhale. remember, you can drop to the knee. Last big inhale, coming up. Exhale, open out to the side. Inhale, we're going to step forward to the front of the mat. Exhale, fold forward from the hips. Inhale, halfway lift, lengthening the spine, looking forward. Exhale, fold, plant the hands, step back as slowly as you need to. Lower down onto the belly or chaturanga. Inhale, fluid movements, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. We're going to take some rolling downward dogs, Adho Mukha Svanasana. So just start by lifting the heels, then lift the butt, begin to move the spine into a really big flexion. So we're kind of in like the cat version of cat-cow. Keeping the head down, looking back, roll it forward into plank. And then we're going to do the opposite. Plank, rolling the chin towards the chest, lifting those hips high, and then very gently extending the heels down towards the floor. One more of each. You can do it with the knees dropped as well. Coming into kind of a long tabletop, I suppose. And come back to neutral. And then from here, we're going to drop to the knees and come into some swooping cats. So knees, hips distance apart. Bring the palms back slightly so that the wrists are underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips, feet flat out behind you. And then what we're going to do is no specific inhale to exhale movements. We're just going to make it one big fluid movement, rolling through the shoulders. Exhale, rolling back, inhales, matching the exhales, maybe even bring the knees back slightly so you can kind of touch the chest to the floor, almost moving into a high cobra in between, just taking any fluid movements that feel good to you here. Maybe even bring the hips out to one side. Maybe move into kind of an orbiting cat-cow, I suppose. Notice how you're feeling. Without attaching judgments, become aware of any tightness. So don't attach any stories to it, just notice how you're feeling. And then very gently, we're going to come to lay down on our bellies. We're going to take some rolling cobras. So coming down flat onto the belly. Depending on the mobility today, we may just be working with rolling a few low cobras. If you're feeling a little bit more open in the extension of the spine, then we'll be moving towards high cobras at various intervals. So just stay with your limits today. Bring the palms underneath the shoulders to start with, elbows into the ribs, inhale. Lift the chest, look forward. Try to avoid engaging the glutes too much. Just a gentle activation, drawing the tops of the feet down into the floor. Exhale, release down. Bring the palms back slightly, inhale. Come up into a mid-cobra, keep those elbows drawn in. Maybe finding some movement in the cervical spine, gentle neck rolls. Exhale to release down. Bring the palms back slightly, inhale. Moving up into a high cobra. Again, gentle neck rolls, maybe looking out over to your right ear. Either full neck rolls or half neck rolls, chin to chest, look over to the left ear. Once more on each side. One more inhale. Exhale, using the strength of the arms, slowly, slowly, as if you're moving through water, lower down. Press back through child's pose. Hips to heels, knees slightly wider, forehead or chin down towards the floor of the block, extending the arms out in front. This is probably one of the only poses that I'm going to include that's going to involve stillness. So just use this as an opportunity to still the body, Allow all the work you've done to sink in into the joints, but still maintaining that steady connection to the breath, steady stream of inhales and exhales, steady stream of consciousness, not allowing the mind to fluctuate too much. As we inhale, very slowly, very gently, walk the hands back up, rolling up the spine. Bring the knees together, shift the hips off to one side, and then extend the legs out in front. We're going to come into Paschimottanasana, seated forward fold, but we're going to be coming into it with some inhale and exhale movements. So as we inhale, we take hold of the legs, we lengthen, so that may be thigh, shin, peace fingers around the big toes or a strap, whatever feels more accessible to you. We inhale, we lengthen, we create that space, we establish our base through our sit bones, feel nice and grounded. And then as we exhale, starting to gently fold forward, constant movement. So as we inhale, we create that lift in the chest. As we exhale, maybe we allow ourselves to sink a little bit deeper, keeping the movement as we inhale. Look forward, lengthen, exhale, fold. Maybe physically, we're not moving that much. We're not staying, we're not as sort of going deeper into the posture, but with the inhales, the intention of lengthening and creating spine, and the exhales, the intention of sinking deeper. Ultimately, over time, that muscle memory is going to get a little bit stronger and a little bit more aware of how to open up deeper into this posture. So I want you to kind of have a loose grip here. So if you've got the big toes, that's kind of a useful grip. That's quite a nice one. If you've got the strap, try to avoid holding it too tightly and yanking yourself forward. If you've got hold of the legs, this can be a really nice one to allow the mobility. So you should be able to bend and extend your elbows. Okay, if you've kind of got like a really tight grip around the feet and your arms are in full extension, you're not going to get as much benefit from the mobility of the spine. And inhale, come back up, all the way up to center. Maybe even take a little bit of a lift at the top, so bring the hands back behind you. Just lift, maybe the hips come up slightly, look back, and release down. We're going to come into Ardha Matsyendrasana, half Lord of the Fishes pose. I thought I have to include a fish pose in a water-based class. So half Lord of the Fishes. We're going to inhale, bring the left knee in towards the chest, and then bring the left foot to the outside of the right knee. Bring the left hand to the outside of the left hip, bring the right hand towards the knee. Okay, so this may feel like enough of a twist. You can stay here, or you can hook the outer edge of the elbow to the outer edge of the knee. There is an option for a bind here, but I'm probably not going to include it just because binds often make us feel more stable in postures. They often help us to stay grounded and still. So instead of including a bind, I'm just going to offer up the option to allow yourselves to gently go deeper by looking out over that left shoulder, gently pressing that left shoulder away from the ear as we open up through that right inner arm. That left leg moves towards the midline more. Try to include fluid movements, even if you're not moving. So never force yourself into a twist. Try not to make that an element of this posture, but instead focus on inhaling to lengthen. You can lengthen as much as you like. Draw the crown of the head away from the tailbone. And then as we exhale, we allow ourselves to maybe go a little bit deeper, looking out over the left shoulder. As we inhale, we come to center. We release the arms. Release the legs slowly, as if you're moving through water. Release. Bring the right knee in. Right foot to the outside of the left knee. Right hand to the outside of the right hip. Bring the left hand to wherever feels comfortable. Remember to move with your body today. So maybe just taking it around the thigh or the shin. Maybe something new, something that you're working with. Maybe hooking the outer edge of the elbow. But I find the more mobility you have kind of in the arms, so if you're locking the elbow to the outer edge, there's a limited amount of mobility you can have in that shoulder. Same as if you're doing the bind, there's even less mobility you've got in the posture. If you're bringing just your hand to your knee, your thigh or your shin, you've got that opening through the chest, the shoulders to work with, and the neck a little bit more as well. You've kind of got that mobility to find some movements or ranges of movements that your body needs today. Very gently come back to center, slowly, slowly. Release the leg. And we're going to come to lay down on our backs. Just move that. There we go. Bring the knees in slightly. Bring the feet to mat's distance apart. And you're going to bring your knees to touch just for a moment, just to establish your foundations here through the feet. Release the arms alongside the body. Maybe even bring the arms out to a capital T position or a goalpost position if that feels nice on the shoulders. But moving through the knees, moving through the hips, we're going to gently lower our knees over to the right. But we're going to make it a fluid movement over to the left. Don't worry about moving your head from side to side unless it feels nice. We don't want to kind of make ourselves dizzy by moving our head too much. Focus more on opening through the lower body, the hips, as we move into this slightly more passive twist with the dynamic movement. Maybe even slow it down. Maintaining that steady breath. And then when you're done, bring your knees back to center. Bring the soles of the feet together and let the knees fall open to the sides. If you wanted, you can take blocks underneath the thighs to help support you here. This is another movement where we're going to find stillness. We're going to allow ourselves to become present and tune into how we're feeling in the body. So you can bring your left hand on your heart, your right hand on your belly. Feel your gentle, slow, rhythmic breath traveling, lifting your left hand. As you inhale, feel it lifting your chest. And then as the journey of the breath travels into the belly, feel it lifting your right hand. And then feel your right hand sink, your left hand sink as you exhale. Feeling this lovely fluidity, creativity flowing through. Bringing flexibility into the body. Hopefully flexibility into the mind, allowing us to go with the flow of life. And then when you're ready, we're going to gently release, coming into our Savasana. Bring your knees towards your chest. If it feels nice, draw them in, have a little hug, have a little roll. Your last opportunity for movement before rest. So listen to what last little things your body needs. And then extend your legs out long. Bring your arms alongside the body, palms face up. Release the feet to mat distance apart. Maybe even bring the arms, the feet a little bit wider here. Allow the shoulders to draw away from the ears and back down towards the ribs. Now you can visualize yourself as a still body of water, resting with only the ripples of your breath passing through. I encourage you to stay resting in your Savasana for as long as you have the time for. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. As you go forward, I wish you peace in your thoughts, peace in your words, peace in your heart. Namaste.